morning, everyone. My name is Sally. I'm the owner of Disable Advantage. This morning, I'll be doing a walk with Austin, my first walk in about 2 weeks because I got sick and CRPS plus a cold completely wrecks me. So, Austin hasn't had a ton of formal, structured work with him. He's just been doing task work around the house and moving from place to place in the house. So what we're going to be doing on this walk is a follower asked me to talk through a little bit of what I look for in him, the behavior I ask for in him before a walk, and then also how strict of a heel do I keep and how do I structure heel walks. That question has been coming up a lot, so I'm going to dedicate this video to that. And I chose this morning because he hasn't had a lot of formal walks in the last 2 weeks. He's been getting a lot of treadmill exercise. He might make mistakes and might be a little bit more energetic, a little bit more squirrely. We're just going to have to see how it goes. But I'm hoping that he makes some mistakes on camera so you can see how I handle those mistakes. To start out, I'm going to show you how I get ready for a walk, and you can see some of the things that he has learned are cues that we're going to go for a walk. So 2 things, he already knows a walk is going to happen because he helped me get dressed this morning and I put on a completely different set of clothes, had breakfast, and he had breakfast and rested for an hour to make sure that he fully digested his food. And then I asked him to help me get dressed again. I put on different clothes. And these clothes and these pants in particular, he's learned to recognize me, we're going for a walk. So that's one thing. The second thing is I've got my hat and my headband. My headband helps protect my ears from allergens. It sounds weird, but we have discovered that if I don't walk with something covering my ears, I tend to get really bad ear pain. And the only thing we can trace it back to is the possibility that pollen's getting in my ears and triggering some sort of CRPS flare. So that's what the headband's for. Austin is on one of his place pancakes right now, but I didn't put him there. But you can tell he's watching me. So the question about what behavior or what sort of etiquette do I look for before a walk, or how do I set that up? It's a difficult question for me to answer because, and I'm going to show you both ways that I start a walk, because the truth is that since Austin is a service dog, he gets to leave the house a little bit differently than a pet dog does. And also, to that vein, his heel is more strict than a pet dog heel that I teach. And when you're watching this video today and listening to me talk about heel, I don't necessarily want you to take what I'm saying about heel as the best possible answer. Okay, I have all trainers train just a little bit different of a heel, and it really comes down to what you personally want out of your dog and what you need out of your dog and what you need from heel. What I need from heel is completely different from what my friend needs with heel, and my heel is even different than one of my clients learning heel. And so it really comes down to, you have to look at the individual and the dog. And a lot of the things that I talk about with heel may be different than what you will hear from a different trainer. If you like what I'm saying and you like the way that I teach, awesome. I encourage you to sign up for a one-on-one training session with me so we can work on you and your dog's heel together so that you can get even more inside help as to how I got to this point with Austin. because how I got to this point on Austin is not what you're going to see in this video. What you're going to see in this video is a dog who's 5 years old, who's been training with me for 3 years, 3.5 years, and who has learned heel. Okay, so this is not, he might make some mistakes because he hasn't done a ton of formal work in the last few weeks, but this is not a dog who is learning heel. I want to be really clear about that. This is a dog who knows what's expected of him and is going for a walk, but who might make mistakes because he's a dog, and that happens. No amount of training is ever going to turn out a perfect dog. But I'll talk more about my heel on the actual walk so you can see it in progress. When I'm getting ready for a walk, there's a few key things that I do. Normally what I would do is I'd put my socks on and I would ask Austin to get me my sneakers. We've had a lot of rain in the past few days, and so I'm actually going to wear my rain boots, which is a slightly different setup than him bringing me my shoes. If you have a pet dog, as soon as you start thinking about going on a walk, my recommendation is to ask your dog to be on place or to be in their kennel / crate. And they stay in there until 1, you're ready to go, and 2, they're not freaking out. What do I mean by freaking out? What I mean is that, okay, they're laying on their place blanket, their heads down, maybe they're watching you, but they're quiet. They're not whining, they're not barking, they're not shaking with anticipation. They're just, frankly, bored. Now, he could do to look a little more bored, but he is also waiting for a walk. But he's not, if your dog looks like someone who's about to launch themselves off of a diving platform, they're not ready to leave their crate, their kennel, or a place blanket. They need to hang out there for a little bit longer or be in a down. Like if you don't use a crate, you don't use a place blanket, just have your dog in a down. And they need to stay in that down until they look really bored. They're not making noise. They're just hanging out. And that's when you can put their gear on and get ready to leave. But if once you put their gear on, they start jumping, they start spinning in circles, they're whining, they're wiggling, there's just a ton of energy there. You don't want to leave the house with that energy, because when you leave the house with that energy, your walk actually starts before you leave the house. Your walk starts as soon as you personally start getting ready for your walk. And this is something a lot of people don't realize, is that your dog is watching everything you do. And that sounds creepy, but it's true. Your dog is watching everything that you do. Your dog learns what things mean you're getting ready to go for a walk. And hopefully you're going to get to see that from Austin. So there will be a lot of times where I get ready for a walk, I get his gear on, but then he's got so much energy that I put him back on place. And we have to do this a lot when we go to town because he loves his job so much that he gets really excited about working. But then me and my husband are still getting ready to go, and he's just following us around the house in his gear whining, and that's overexcitement. And that's not necessarily the dog I want to take outside and go work with. I want a dog who's calm and focused, not totally amped up. Because the dog who's totally amped up is more likely to make mistakes that accidentally hurt me, and they're more likely to just be kind of goofy in general when you're working. And as a working dog, he can't have that. He's going to have goofy days, but goofy very quickly devolves into unprofessional. So what we do is we get him ready, and then we put him back on place, or we ask him to lay down while we finish getting ready. Also to kind of break up his brain cycle of, oh, we're going places now. No, you're going to chill out. I do as many things as I can to break him out of anticipation cycles, because the more he anticipates things, Sometimes it's good, but if he anticipates everything, he's no longer actively listening to me or waiting for cues. He's just making random choices based on energy. And they're not always good choices. So the second thing I do, I'm mostly ready. I need to put gear on him, and then I need to finish putting my gear on for walks. I'm going to put his gear on first. So like I said, he's not on a command, so if he leaves his blanket, that's fine. Okay, so Austin wears routinely on walks a chain slip collar. We use a prong collar occasionally, but more so when we're in very crowded or high stimulation areas where I expect him to have more energy. He also wears a e-collar. This is my ability to give him additional corrections or nonverbal cues for things like if I need to break his focus on a rabbit or a squirrel, or if he does something random like trying to turn his head back and look at traffic, that's a hazard to me, and it's also breaking my definition of heel, so I might use the e-collar for that. But there are a lot of points in his walk now that he's at the point in his life with me that I don't need to use the e-collar as much because he listens to my voice so well. Front. Front. So the first thing I do is I call him in front to put all his gear on. What? This just makes it easier for me to put his gear on without him squirming and moving around. Okay, the next thing I'm going to put on is his harness. My legs are a little shaky today, so he's going to wear his off-duty counterbalance harness. And for this, I have him stand. Stand. Good boy. Real quick, though, I'm just going to do a gentle massage that kind of helps stretch out his back a little bit. I like to do this before I put harnesses on him. I'm trying to loosen up his muscles and prepare his muscles and prepare his back if he does need to work in his harness. Austin, gear up. He gets one stretch. Any more are a sign that he's trying to get out of doing something. So a lot of dogs, sometimes if your dog you give your dog a command, you start noticing a pattern where every time you give them a command, they suddenly need to scratch their neck or stretch, and they've already stretched once or twice. If it becomes like they're suddenly stretching 5 times in a row or continuously scratching their neck, it might be worth considering that they're blowing off your commands and doing something else instead. Okay, so I'm just pulling back the harness to make sure it's sitting on him correctly. Good boy. Release. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my walking belt. And see how Austin's kind of just moving around beside me aimlessly here? And he's starting to pant. Those are all signs of early excitement. Okay? Austin, down. Good. Trying to break up the anticipation. So I'm going to put my belt on. And head down, boredom. That's what we like to see. What I've got on my belt is a wobble strap. If Austin's not in heel, I can clip this to him, clip it to his harness, and if I wobble to the right, this helps keep me upright without needing to hold on to him. I have a multi-tool. I have water. I have a dump pouch, which often I'll put extra gear in, or if I take extra leashes on a walk, I'll switch my leash out, carry it here. And then I am carrying a pistol. We occasionally have wildlife that could potentially pose a hazard to myself and Austin, or we might come across stray dogs that also pose a health or pose a safety risk to myself and Austin. And also it's just general good personal safety. This is really the only time I wear my gun belt is when I'm walking out here. I don't really wear it in town, just personal preference, but it is something I do, and it is something I've learned how to be safe with firearms, so I carry on walks to help keep me and Austin safe. Now, one thing I do that's a little weird, my gun belt has a MOLLE on it, and so I actually put my e-collar on upside down. I found for my own uses that this actually makes it easier for me to press the button, because a lot of times when I walk, I support my right arm by looping it and sitting it on the belt. Because just swinging my arms makes my arms hurt worse with CRPS. And so if I can have my hands in a hoodie pocket or on a belt, it supports my arm better and prevents that flare. And then my hand is also ready to press the stem button or the vibrate button. So he's pretty chill, which is what you want to see. Let's go. And you'll notice too, hopefully, I'm not using a whole lot of, I'm not talking to him a whole lot. I'm not getting him excited with phrases like, let's go on a walk and things like that. Those phrases are fun for us to say, but all they do is encourage your dog to get more excited. So here is where I'm going to show you two ways. Okay, so the first way is the service dog way, which is what Austin actually does in real life. Turn. Stand. Let's get you all the way on the mat. There you go. So one of Austin's jobs is to help me put shoes on safely, or boots on safely. So stand. He is going to stand. He's standing a certain way so that he stabilizes me while I put my boots on. Next thing is one of Austin's tasks is to open doors for me. So traditionally what you're going to hear from trainers is never let your dog go out the door first. And that's not necessarily bad advice, but you have to remember that I'm a service dog trainer first. So a lot of the things you see me do with Austin is going to look different and weird. Like this. Austin, tug. Austin usually starts his walks out off leash because he's a service dog. I need him to do work. Tug. So he's off leash, right? And he's getting excited. Happy dog. Okay, but when Austin was first learning how to be a service dog and first learning all of his skills and training, that's not how we would leave the house. So he has earned this because he completed basic training and because he did all of his task training. So if you either don't have a service dog or you are starting a dog, but they don't know anything yet, or they're learning leash manners or they're learning heel, whatever it is, this is going to look different. So what it looks like instead is I've got a good grip on the leash. Austin, sit. Good. You should be able to ask your dog to sit, step forward, open the door, and your dog stay in a sit or a stand, however you want to start the walk. Sit is just easier for a lot of people because it's easier to tell if your dog has moved or what their state of mind is. A lot of dogs have a trick of being able to like wiggle forward without you realizing it. And then we just wait here. And you'll notice he's already in. This is my heel position. This is my starting heel position. This is how, when he was first learning, and for the first, let's say 6 to 8 months of training, this is how Austin started every single one of his walks. This is also how Austin starts all of his walks with my husband when he walks him. So because he's not a service dog for my husband, this is how my husband walks him. And this also helps continually reinforce some rules in the house. Heel. We go through the door together. Sit. Good. I drop the slack in the leash so that I'm not accidentally pulling on him while I go to close the door. Good boy. Then I'm going to drop the leash slack. Heel. Good. Sit. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but sit your dog far enough away so that you don't accidentally hit them in the face with the door as the door opens. Just common courtesy to the dog. Heel. And you'll notice I stopped and he stopped. That's a great doorway manners etiquette to practice as well. Heel. Sit. Good boy. Again, I'm going to drop the slack, but I'm still holding the leash so I can shut the door. And that is how I start a walk, both with Austin as a service dog and if Austin was a pet dog. Now, Austin learned heel with the leash across my legs. I apologize for the shakiness. Like this, where I hold the leash against my right leg, and our left knee would help give corrections on the leash, and this taught him to follow my left leg as cues. But now that Austin is further along in his training, or has done with his training, we quickly switched over to one-handed leash, or what I call same side heeling, same side leash hold. And this is what Austin does most of the time. This helps mimic the hands-free leash and then helps translate better into, or transfer better into off-leash heel. But this is how I start a heel walk, regardless. So even if Austin tugged open all the doors, we got here, or he waited at each door, I opened it, and then we went through together as a team. You could also do sending the dog forward and then asking him to sit, or you could leave them on one side of the door, you go through the door, and then you call them to recall. However you want to do it, it's really up to you. It's just about setting it up with some measure of structure and, some measure of structure so that the dog's not just bolting out of the doors. There's a measure of control to it. I've got my leash. I've got my thumb through the thumb loop. A lot of people like a wrist loop, but a thumb loop is actually a much safer, more secure hold, and it doesn't run the risk of breaking your hand. Austin is unfortunately on a 7-foot leash because that's the most visible leash for you guys to see on this walk. And then it's folded through my hand, and the last little bit is draped over my forefinger. And that allows me to give him really subtle corrections just by moving these fingers. I'm not giving him any corrections right now because I haven't shortened up on the leash. But he's only got about 6 inches of leash. Think of your leash as the amount of choices or the amount of space for choices you're allowing your dog to make. So a 7-foot leash, if I were to give Austin all 7 foot of this leash, he would have 7 feet worth of choices in basically any direction. That can quickly become very hazardous. So when you work on heel with your dog, I recommend you set a leash length, and that's what you keep it to. And what I recommend for most people is the dog only has about 1 to 2 foot of leash, no more than that. Because any more than that, they're going to make erratic choices that you aren't prepared for. And it sets you up for more problems. Now, I do want to be very clear. This is a very strict heel walk. This is not what I call a loose leash walk. This is heel. Austin has a short leash so that I can be more prepared for squirreliness, but also to maintain this position. So when Austin is in heel, his shoulders and his front leg are expected to be in line and parallel to my left leg. He is expected to be this close to my left leg. The reason for that, heel, is that if I were to fall all of a sudden or stumble or start to lose my balance, I would need to be able to put my hand on his shoulders and brace. He got a correction there for turning his head. That feels strict, but if he turns his head, he's off balance. So I teach a strict heel for balance purposes. If you're not teaching your dog how to be a balance assisted dog, they don't necessarily need this strict of a heel. I do for Austin. So while we're moving together, Austin is very close to me. He's at most never more than 6 inches away from my leg, and he's not touching my leg, so he's not constantly pressing up against me. You might see that in obedience or trick videos where the dog is practically snuggling their handler. And also possibly looking up at their handler. I don't teach that kind of a heel for 2 reasons. The first is, if Austin is actively leaning into me, he can very easily knock me off balance. And so him leaning into me that way while moving is incredibly dangerous to my safety. The second thing is that if he's looking up at me while we're moving, if I were to suddenly brace on his shoulders, I could throw him off balance, and it could possibly cause a fall for both of us. It's not a safe or balanced way for me to rely on him for balance support, so I don't train that. The third thing is that while not often, I do rely on him to inform me of things that I'm not aware of. And so if he's looking adoringly up at me, he's not paying attention to where we're going. And I don't find that helpful in a working dog. Especially a dog who I rely on for my personal safety with disability, in terms of he will routinely guide me around ice patches or holes if he sees them and I don't. He makes judgment calls like that, and or an obstacle that I possibly don't see, and if he's looking up at me, he's not aware of our surroundings, and he can't know to guide me around something to help keep me safe and prevent falls. Good heel. So every time you get to a road, sit. Good. Now we are going to be going that way, but it's still a good idea to stop at roads, practice crosswalks, and check for traffic. And then when we're ready to go again, left leg forward so that that stays a cue, heel, and then we start going again. Good heel. Now, I might praise Austin every now and then, but I don't praise him a whole lot because praising him, he's already having a good time. He's already enjoying himself. I learned from another trainer, and then recognized it in Austin, that praising him often led him to walk faster and end up pulling on the leash and then needing corrections. And so once I stopped praising him and just stayed silent more often, he ended up succeeding more. I didn't realize that praising him was causing him to get excited all over again. But now I can leverage that. When I need him to go faster, I can talk to him and use a bunch of praise and he'll go faster for me. But just walking on a normal walk, that's not necessarily what I want. So we're going to move a little further away from the edge because I don't want some of these grasses potentially transferring ticks to him. And if you never watched my videos before, we don't have sidewalks. So I've always got to be a little bit extra aware of our surroundings. As does he. Okay, not too bad. So I'm going to turn and face the road we're going to. And he's going to stay standing. You might ask for a sit here. Because he's a balanced dog, he's usually asked to stay standing, especially if he notices my legs tremoring a little bit, and I think they are. Heel. Oh. Okay, someone came through here with something. There's all sorts of fun bumps in the road. Okay. Sit. Good. I'm going to take off my counterbalance strap here so there's better visibility. Sorry. Wow, a little bit of rain. Those crops popped up fast. Okay, so I'm getting my leash resettled. Got all that extra. I'm going to take the extra and then I'm just going to lay it in my hand. I know that's not a great view. It's really hard to do this with only two hands. And then I'm going to get my leash back to where it was. Good boy. Good job, Austin. Okay, Austin, heel. So, let's talk about my heel first. You'll notice how close Austin is to me and where his shoulders are. So that, again, if I say stop, my hand easily goes to his shoulders. Heel. This is a very strict heel. This is a very difficult heel. This heel took Austin most of a year to learn because it's so hard. He has to stay aware of where I am and where he is in space and time, and then maintain that position of his own accord. Yes, a leash is on him, but unless we turn and he goes wide or starts lagging behind, the leash really isn't doing anything here. The leash is pretty slack. What's happening here is that Austin is choosing to be in the right position because he was given a command. He knows this command, and so he's upholding and maintaining it. One problem I do have with Austin is he frequently goes into autopilot mode, which is not unusual for a lot of working dogs. But it can give the illusion that he's paying attention when he's not. So anytime I think he's in autopilot mode, I might throw in a circle or a change of direction just to see if he's really paying attention. Rules for heel. Heel is very hard to do, so it's very tiring. So if we're taking a hour-long walk, he's not doing heel for the entire hour. He gets a break somewhere in the middle of the walk to be on loose leash, sniff, go to the bathroom, and just kind of take a mental break. And that's something I recommend for especially dogs learning heel, and even for seasoned dogs. Heel's just this type of structured, strict heel. He is thinking right now. It's work for his brain. So my rules for heel: he has to stay in this exact right position. He can't be behind my leg, and he can't be too far ahead. Because if he's too far ahead and I stumble, my hand falls on his spine, which is not a load-bearing point. I could slide off of him, or he could swing out of the way, or I could potentially hurt him. If he's too far back, I land on his neck, which is bad for him, or I land on thin air, which guarantees a fall. Now, it's not often. He's not constantly preventing falls, but it happens enough, both on the go and in town, that he always needs to be in the right position just in case it does happen. It's his job. Second rule is he can't turn his head past 90 degrees to the left or to the right. So he can't turn his head into my leg and look behind himself. Both of those things, if he looks to the left, his shoulders knock into me and push me off balance. If he looks to the right, his head knocks into me, he swings way out of position, and things go very sideways very quickly. We struggled with that a lot when he was learning heel, and the result was more often than not me falling in the ditch on the side of the road, or almost falling in a ditch. Both of which caused trauma for the CRPS and extra pain flares. He also is not allowed to drop his head down and sniff. So earlier he got a correction for sniffing at the ground. He's not allowed to drop his head to sniff things. We're moving with intention. This is not relaxation time. The next thing is that he's not allowed to pull. So that goes back to him being out of position. If he were to start pulling, he'd get first a verbal correction and second a leash correction. With a firmer verbal correction. He's allowed to get a little prancy about small animals so long as he stays in the correct position. If you start staring at anything, another dog, another person, squirrels, rabbits, etc., for longer than 1 to 2 seconds, he gets a correction to try and break his focus. If we're in public and he starts whining about seeing another dog, which happens quite a lot, it's something we are always working on because he's not dog neutral enough. He just wants to play with every dog he sees, which is a problem. And so anytime he starts whining about another dog, we use appropriate e-collar corrections to break his focus on the dog and remind him that he's working and it's not a time to focus on other dogs. So how does Austin know he's doing a good job? If the leash is slack like this and he's not getting tension on the leash through leash corrections, he's not getting verbal corrections, he knows he's doing the right thing. He is being praised right now through the way that the leash and the collar and myself are communicating with him. I do have my left arm against my body pretty straight. This is a very unnatural position to hold your arm, but it helps limit the erroneous signals that he might get when you swing your arm to and fro as you walk. If you have a short leash, you're going to start putting weird tension on the leash. So if I were to do that now, I'm telling him to go forward, backwards, forward, backward, he's getting confused. Heel, good boy. A lot of people don't realize that your hand is communicating with your dog through the leash. How much tension there is, how much slack there is, how much your hand is moving, all of that travels to your dog. So this is what my strict, structured heel looks like. I try to practice this 4 days a week, and this is the kind of heel that he's expected to do when he's working in public. What he's wearing is gray when we're in stores, and sometimes when he's on walks. This is also a very similar position to what he does when I'm holding the counterbalance harness. It's just slightly, he might be slightly ahead, but not by much. There. So we're starting to get a little bit more space between us. That's not his fault, that's me. I'm wobbling more from fatigue and on the gravel. And he's staying in a straight line because that's his job. Just because I wobble doesn't mean he should wobble. If he stays in a straight line and then I grab onto the counterbalance strap, then see, he's a little bit more forward, but not by much. He's still super close. And now holding on the counterbalance prevents me wobbling and keeps me more upright. Good. Heel. Good boy. My heel is incredibly strict. But it needs to be because of Austin's job. If Austin was not a balance assist dog, I would not require a heel this strict. And once Austin retires, I won't require a heel this strict. He also has to match my pace. So if I go super slow, he needs to go super slow and stay in the same position. If I speed up, good. He also needs to speed up and still stay in the same position. Okay, that's causing too much fatigue for me. Good. Now, I've been wobbling on this walk, so he's chosen to stand, and I'm okay with that. That's kind of the intelligent disobedience kicking in. Sometimes service dogs make arbitrary choices based on what they notice in their handler is what's needed. That's where anticipation is okay. It gets kind of blurry. I'm sorry. This is complicated. When Austin first learned heel, though, we taught an auto sit, which was every time we stopped moving, he would sit. Once he got to advanced training, that changed to every time we stop, you can just stand, because we were working towards balance assist work. This helps ensure that if you need to stop to look at your phone or stop before crossing the street or whatever, that your dog is under some measure of control so that they can't suddenly dart off to the corner at something you didn't see and have the impulse control to just wait, and they're practicing impulse control and all of those good things. Okay, so I'm going to give Austin a little bit of a break. So I'm going to drop the slack in the leash. Focus. Good. Release. My release cue is a hand gesture forward and a step forward. And now he can make 7 feet worth of choices. So I'm going to let him do this for a little bit. And then I'm going to show you a pet heel so that you do get the opportunity to see both versions of what I teach. Now, this is very different from heel. Right now, he's just on what I call a loose leash walk. So his responsibility here is to not let the leash get tight. But he can be out in front of me. He can be a little bit behind me, not by much. Don't feel safe when dogs are behind me because I can't see what they're doing. He is not allowed to cross in front of me. He is not allowed to switch to the right side. He has to stay over there. He can turn and look behind himself, but he can't do any He was getting a little too fast, so I gave him a leash pop. That told him to slow down. Leash near the ground. This is what I'm looking for. He can't do anything crazy like go up ahead, circle around, come back. Go up ahead, circle around, come back. He might do that when he's off leash. But if he's on leash, he's still expected to follow some measure of walk in a straight line and don't be a squirrel, because the leash connects us. And if he does something squirrely, he could suddenly yank my arm forward or yank my arm behind me or cross in front of me and cause me to fall. And a lot of that crap happened when we were first training him, which is understandable because he was learning the rules. But it can't happen anymore. We taught him a better way. We taught him a different way. Now, some trainers don't like giving the dog this much leash. It took us about 1.5 years to give Austin this much leash because he knows what to do with it. He also knows how to return to heel or front rather quickly, and I know how to quickly reel the leash back up if we need to. All of this keeps us safer. We're also in the middle of nowhere. We're very unlikely to run into another person. Now, if we're at a park, I don't typically give him this much leash. If we're at a park, he gets about half this. I think it's a road behind us, buddy. So he kept looking behind us, and it was enough repetitions of it that I was like, well, is there a car behind us? Let's check. And there isn't. We've got some humidity this morning, so I think we're able to hear cars that are several roads behind us. And we're tangled. Brain's not working. I know, buddy. Pass. Good. Okay, let's go. Austin, sit. Sit. Good. Good. Focus up. Okay. So, for pet dogs, they don't necessarily need as strict of a heel. So, still roughly the same. He's now got about a foot of leash. My pet dog clients and clients who are training light mobility dogs who aren't going to be used for balance support, this is the kind of heel that I shape. I still teach it the same. I'm just less strict about the dog's movements. So I'm not going to say heel because that would be confusing for him. I'm just going to say let's go. But I want to be clear that what I'm asking for and what this looks like is the pet heel that I do offer. Let's go. Still the left leg cues, but you see there's more gap between us, and he's also a little bit more ahead. If he wanted to go out wide, that's about as wide as he could go, is as much leash as he's got, which is 1 foot. He can be a little bit ahead. He can be slightly behind. He might sniff and just get one correction. If he started making a habit of sniffing and walking at the same time, he would get more corrections. And this may not be a great example for you guys. Watching videos of, if you go to my transformation playlist and you look at videos of Max, Max is a pet heel. He can go a little bit ahead, a little bit out to the side, and slightly behind, but he still can't cross in front of her. He can't randomly switch sides unless he's asked to, and he still is not allowed to pull on the leash. So the biggest difference between pet heel and the strict working mobility dog heel that I teach is how close the dog is. So Austin's pretty far away from me right now. And I know it doesn't look like it, but if you go back to earlier in the video and compare it, he's pretty far away. I would have to lean further out to my left to catch his shoulders if I started to fall. And he's gonna wobble back and forth because he can tell I'm getting tired on this walk. And so he's trying to do his job even without being asked to, which is his job. It just makes it harder for you guys to see the difference. But pet dog heel, they can look around some, but if someone does still have balance issues, I really don't want the dog spinning around in heel. It's just not safe. Being behind your leg, personally, whether it's a service dog or pet dog, I like to be able to have my head up, looking ahead, and be able to flick my peripheral vision down and see the dog's head. And the reason for that is that if I can see the dog's head, I have a better sense of where their attention is than if they're behind me. And then I'm better prepared for if they're going to need a correction. If you're constantly looking down at your dog and watching their position, it changes your body shape, for one. And some dogs, especially if you're really anxious on your walk, are gonna start to pick up on your attention through the leash and be even squirrelier. Pet heel still needs to pace match. So he struggled a little bit, leash tightened, it corrected him. Speeding up. He's staying with me. That's good. Can't turn their head past 90. Just because once the head turns past 90, usually the rest of the body follows. And then you've got a dog spinning on leash in place. And that's not really safe for healthy people either. And that's also not a calm dog. So not ideal. But they might turn their heads more often. They might look up at you. If you're okay with that, go for it. The thing about Austin turning his head too is that you saw at the beginning when he turns his head, I said he was off balance. It's something I can feel in his shoulders. So that's why he's usually more strict about it. If I say leave it on a walk with heel, pet heel or service dog heel, we'll do it up here because there's a pile of poop and some mud. Dog might break heel for a split second. Pets can move a little bit more. Service dogs can't. Austin, leave it. So he just gets closer to me and then we go around it. That was a really good way to handle that. Pet dogs might drop behind you for a little bit. Relatively okay as long as they're not stepping on your heels and tripping you. At least in my book. Again, this is all my professional opinion. And things that I do to try to keep my clients safe on walks. Generally, I would have one hand on the leash and one hand resting near the e-collar, but not necessarily on the e-collar. So if I have a muscle spasm, I'm not accidentally pressing the e-collar. But someplace where it's easily accessible, so I'm not having to fumble for it and missing opportunities. Pet dog heel still can't pull. So they still need to respect the amount of leash that you've given them. And they still need to move close with you. They still need to move when you move, stop when you stop. But you see now, he's just like, he's out to the side. He's kind of curved a little bit. For a pet, this is fine. So Austin's not in a formal command right now, but this I would consider acceptable for a pet heel. Dog's moving forward with you with intention, might be sniffing a little bit here and there. He's a little bit ahead of me, but he's moving with me. If I move over here, he moves to catch up with me. For pet heel, you'd want the dog to be a little bit closer. So like that. But this was what I would consider a decent pet heel. Moving with you, close to your body, has about a semicircle of choice. But they're not 3 feet away from you, 3 feet ahead or 3 feet behind. They're within 2 feet of you and moving with intention beside you nicely, not pulling on the leash. For a balance assist dog, it's not okay. So I do teach 2 different types of heel. My own personal dogs, if they're in heel, they're in working heel, which means either we're working on heel to work on problems, or I'm having a bad day and I very well might need your help. Even if we're doing a training walk where we're working on heel to work out kinks, I might still end up needing to suddenly brace. So position's very important. A lot of times when we go on walks out here, Max does drive-by sniffs in the ditch, and that's okay for him. His owner's okay with that, so that's fine. I try to keep, he'll also sometimes go in the ditch to use the bathroom. I try to not let Austin do that. As far as Austin is concerned, this is where the path is. So we got a big truck coming up. Austin, heel. And you'll notice I didn't stop and ask him to sit or stand and then say heel. I just said heel while we were moving. That's one of the skills that Austin learned in his advanced training with me, is how to move into the heel position when we're already moving. Most of the time for safety reasons like that, passing traffic, just to make really good ensure he's in a controlled command position. So Austin actually didn't make any mistakes this walk, or he made a few mistakes, but not many, and they certainly weren't very dramatic. I don't normally stop in front of my driveway because there's so many blind spots that coming home I don't stop often. But something I forgot to mention at the beginning is, I did it, but I forgot to mention it. Heel starts the moment we start walking. So we left the door and heel was all the way down the driveway, and now heel is all the way back through the driveway until we get in the yard. And this is another little thing that can help keep your dog safe from road traffic. Austin is not allowed in this part of the driveway without a leash on. He's not always in heel, but he always has a leash on. And that's to help remind his brain and set up rules in his brain for where he's allowed to be off leash and where he's not. And to help keep him safe, he's not allowed in the driveway off leash. So I'll show you how he would get a correction. He's not great at right circles. So I'm going to try and keep my left arm by my side so that he isn't pulling on my right arm, and so that the leash is more effectively correcting him as he makes a mistake. So you see how the leash is tightening? That's a correction. It's loose because he caught up. And now it's tightening. That's a correction. He's doing that to himself by not staying with me. Now, Austin does better with directional cues. So let's try that. Star. Good. Star. Good. Star. You see the leash doesn't tighten. Star. Good. Star. Good. So the leash automatically tightening there was not me actually making the leash pop. Austin chose to go slow. He chose to lag. He chose to not move with me. And so the leash tightened, made life unpleasant for him, and he gradually did improve his behavior. Second time I gave him directional cues, partly to show you what it should look like, and also partly to show you that sometimes you have to modify what you're doing to suit your dog. Robbie was better at watching my legs. Austin wants more commands. So the more commands I give Austin, the happier he is. Turn cues help him stay with me. That's fine. So I'm going to let Austin off leash for a little bit for a break, and then I'll show you what we do at the end of a walk. So at the end of the walk, I would give Austin a release cue and just let him be on loose leash, but still have it gathered up, just in case he tried to do any zoomies. It's too wet out here for him to run and play. I did let him go to the bathroom, but it's just too wet and muddy for him to run and play. So we're going to go inside, and if you have a service dog, do still ask them to do the tasks that you need to recover from your walk, whether that be helping you take your shoes off, opening doors, getting you a blanket, etc. Yes, Austin went through the door before me. Austin, open. Here's one of his tasks. Good. Austin, close. Good. If you have a pet dog, just do the reverse of what you did to Leave, where you ask them to wait at the door while you open it and close it, and then come through with you together as a team. He just helped me stabilize to take my shoes off. Sorry, buddy. Accidentally pulled on the leash a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go inside. I'm going to stop at my gear rack And I'm going to take his harness off. And I'm going to take his e-collar off. And then I'm going to offer him a drink of water. Usually we keep water outside, but I haven't washed his bucket yet. Drink. Austin, drink. Good boy. He has cues for drinking and eating so that he doesn't randomly drink out of puddles or water sources that we're not sure of. And same for the eating. I don't want him thinking that anytime he sees food, it's licensed to eat it. And then I would either put Austin on place or his kennel. But he actually loves cooling off in his kennel. Sit. His kennel has tiles in it and a thin blanket. We're able to link it back to the wall so the door can stay open and he's able to come help me when I ask for it. I'm going to make him wait while I take his gear off here. Good. Austin, kennel. And putting him in his kennel lets him settle down, turn his brain off after a walk, cool off, and also take a nap. It encourages him to take a nap after a walk. Sometimes he won't settle down until I've settled down, because it is his job to be alert to if I need assistance. So he'll probably stay awake until I actually sit down back in my chair, and then he'll let himself go to sleep. Sometimes if he's super tired, he'll go to sleep pretty fast. And then in that time, unless I desperately need a task, I try to get by without him so that he can get that rest time. But like I said, the door is open so that if I do need his assistance, he can come and help me. Other details. So I'm pretty exhausted. That was humidity's kind of high. It's not too bad outside, like it's 70, but it's humid, so it feels kind of like you're swimming through the air. And like I said, that's the first walk we've done in a while. My mud boots, which turns out didn't need, road was mostly dried up, but wore them just in case. My mud boots weigh about 3 pounds each, so they're like walking with weights. But they were the best rain boots we could find for my very sad, slightly hypermobile, CRPS riddled feet. They provide the best arch support, and you know, it's just extra strength training. So I'm going to do my usual CRPS recovery of protein shake and water, and a heat pack and a blanket to keep me warm while I cool off. Because if I cool off too fast, it can trigger deep cold flares for me, which sometimes are easy to come out of and sometimes are really hard to come out of. So the best thing for me to do for myself is to keep myself warm, so heat pack and blanket, while I cool down, water, protein shake, being in front of a fan. My pain right now, my pain before I left was kind of spotty. It was like shooting up little fireworks in various areas. My pain now is, my baseline is like an 8. I may have said before, I don't change my pain scale because doctors get confused and they don't cooperate with me and they think I'm over exaggerating, so I stick to the normal. Yes, it's like 11 to 20 for real, but for simplicity's sake, my baseline is an 8. So on that scale, my knees are probably about a 9, because walking for the first time in 2 weeks
and also walking on gravel, and also walking in weighted boots is a pretty significant workout to jump right back into. So those are tired. And right now I'm in trainer mode, so I'm ignoring a lot of pain signals. That's what I do when I switch into trainer mode. My right arm is going to be exhausted. I can almost guarantee it, because I've been holding my phone for an hour, which is a really bad life choice for CRPS, but it was the best way to make this video for you guys. So hopefully it answered your questions about how I start a walk, how I structure heel, how strict I am, and how I differentiate between pet heel and service dog heel. If you, again, want to see pet heel, watch any videos that have the name Max in them. That will show you pet heel. Thank you for watching this video. And again, if you guys want to see other things, just submit them to me in comments or Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already. And if you need help learning how to have more balanced, relaxing walks with your dog, please sign up for a 90-minute training session with me.